This is the week they all get bugged, and my Cincinnati friend, he's a legend there, 31 years now, calling Cincinnati Bengals action after a decade on the field. And I think at one point he even worked for Donald Trump in the USFL and the New Jersey Generals. We'll save that for the end of the broadcast. We welcome our defending champion and the king of the Queen City back on. He is Dave Lapham, longtime Bengal and voice of the Bengals. What's going on, Lapham? How's the chili out there? Still going to cause me indigestion, no doubt.
Nestor, everything's good. How you doing, man? Life is good here. Is life good in Baltimore? It should be.
It's football season. It's got to be good. We're undefeated. We're all undefeated right now, Lapham.
I hear you. I hear you, man.
Well, you guys got your work cut out for you, and I would say this, and I led with this. The AFC North is still the toughest division in football because there's no one I've talked to that doesn't think this is a 3-team race. No one discounts the Ravens despite the bad year last year, and I look at all 3 of these teams and say they can all win 10 games. There aren't a lot of divisions where I see 3 teams, and I say I think 3 teams can win 10 games.
I agree with you. I think the AFC North is physical as any football, and you have to earn a AFC North championship. It doesn't just fall into your lap. You're going to go out and you're going to play very, very tough physical football week in and week out. And it's interesting. I think that the AFC North always represents itself well when playing outside of the division as well. I think everybody else in the league finds out the physicality of this particular division.
All right, man, look, I will get to the Jets in a minute, but, the obvious thing is how does the franchise bounce back from such a devastating loss? I know we've talked about it in the past, and I've talked to Marvin about it. I've seen Marvin 3 or 4 times in the offseason. Kind of strangely enough, we've been in the same place at the same time. I guess that's the challenge outside of that locker room for every fan, for everyone in the NFL. Hell, I was in Germany last week, and they were talking about, Vontaze Burfict and what happened at the end of the football game where, look, I was rooting for the Bengals. I made that clear to Mike Tomlin back in May as well, which he knows. And that's sort of a hangover. That's a different kind of hangover from Marvin hasn't won a playoff game, Andy Dalton hasn't won a playoff game. The game was won and was given away, and everyone there has had to sort of pound that and eat that the last 9 months, and this is the beginning of sort of washing that away for a while.
It is, but I think every time a player does a press conference with visiting or the opposition media, I think they're going to have to address it, and it's one of those things that's going to live on until it's rectified because it was the classic meltdown. I mean, I haven't seen anything like it. Less than 90 seconds of football with the lead and all the things that unfolded, the fumble, the Jeremy Hill's fumble, the Vontaze Burfict, unnecessary roughness, personal foul hit, Adam Jones losing his mind and getting another 15-yard penalty. So, I mean, it was the epitome, the definition of a meltdown, and it disgusted a lot of fans in Cincinnati and players in the locker room as well. I mean, it was like a bomb went off in that locker room after the football game. I've never really seen anything like it. I mean, everybody was stupefied, dumbfounded, however you want to put it.
And angry. I mean, literally. Yeah, I mean, you think the fans were pissed. You thought you were upset. I mean, I can't imagine how you go down. I mean, it's bad enough when it's, I've been in the locker room, and Dave, and I know you lost, you lost a Super Bowl. I mean, you lost, incredible,
right.
Tough games. I was up in New England when, Cundiff missed the kick and Lee Evans dropped the ball, had it swatted away, and they lost a chance to go to the Super Bowl. That's hard enough, the accountability of that. And those guys weren't trying to miss field goals or drop off. This is a different kind of thing within the dynamic of that room.
Right. It was a total, self-destruction. They became their own worst enemy, at the most inopportune time. And I guess, the thing that you have to keep in mind, and I'm sure Marvin's talked about this very thing with his football team, if you had beaten the Steelers or lost to the Steelers, it doesn't mean a hill of beans either way when you go to New York to play the Jets on 9/11. So, that's the thing that you have to bear in mind. You don't automatically get back to try to rectify your problems in the postseason. You don't automatically qualify. Like you said, the AFC North is as tough a road as any division to get into the playoffs. And the Bengals have been very successful in that regard, 5 straight years, 6 out of 7. But boy, that next hurdle seems to be about as high as Mount Everest right now. It's unbelievable.
Is that appreciated in your mind, having spent now 4 decades as a member, most of my lifetime? I mean, you're not even that much older than me at this point, but you've been there 31 years calling the games after playing there in the 70s. These are the good days as a Bengals fan. This is what was missing during all the Bruce Coslitz and all the coaches that came before. And I mean, even Hall of Famers like Dick LeBeau couldn't get it done. And Marvin is maligned, and I take that kind of personally because of my relationship with Marvin, obviously, and our mutual love over the last couple decades. But I do hear it from people and saying he still hasn't won a playoff game, and I'm thinking, how hard it is to get to the playoffs one year, let alone every year, and then that disappointment that comes when you don't play your best football in January. But yet I look up and it's week 1, and I tell you what, Ravens are going to have to deal with the Bengals, and most people think the Bengals are going to win more games than the Ravens.
Yeah, I think the thing with Marvin, as you know, Nestor, you're right. I mean, it's no easy task to win 10 games or more in the NFL, and to do it as many times as Marvin has done it. Let's put it this way. This is the 49th year of the Bengals organization. In their prior 48 years, they won 14 division titles. Marvin has won 7 of them in his first 13 years of coaching. In the first 48 years, the franchise has won 10 division championships. Marvin has won 4 of those 10 in 13 years.
And the Brown family's been there since you got off the boat and has seen all the good and the bad, and they appreciate the good because they know what the bad feels like. So do you.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact is, we talked about this before, too. Continuity and consistency is what the AFC North is all about. It's saved the Cleveland Browns franchise, which continues to reboot, and they have 16 rookies make their roster this year. And let's not include the practice squad. That's 16 guys, 16 rookies on the 53-man roster, and they just continue to reboot. Never mind the coach, the GM, and the president, and the owner, and everything else. That's the exception to the rule, but Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincinnati, very, very consistent with their approach and the continuity within the organization for that approach. So I think that Marvin has done his last 7 years are as good as anybody. Obviously, a franchise record, but about as good as most franchises can claim for a 7-year period in their franchise history. It's been a heck of a run.
We are chatting with Dave Lapham, the longtime voice of the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals open against the Jets and then at Pittsburgh. We sort of know that, that road of beginning the season on the road a couple of weeks in a row. It feels heavy this time of year. It feels better when you get those home games a little later on and get some home cooking. But for a lot of franchises, and Dave, how tough the game is. You get injuries, and, the Tony Romo's not making it onto the field, and the Teddy Bridgewater, and certain places where, everything kind of goes haywire when you start losing players. But so many teams, and I guess this leads to Tom Brady and to Perfect and a lot of other players around the league. The Steelers have, Martavis Bryant, a bunch of guys. These suspensions that begin the year really sort of diminishes some of these rosters before the season begins, that they do sort of limp into openers, and the Bengals are no exception with not only Perfect and but the Eifert thing is sort of weighing heavy on the franchise as the season begins too.
Yeah, it really is. And last year it was just the opposite. The Bengals did not suffer any injury of any consequence until the first quarter of Game 8.
Wow.
And as a result, they start off 8-0. They didn't even have an injury that was reported as more than probable on the injury report for 7+ games.
That will never happen again, right? Literally, unprecedented.
Never. I've never seen anything like it. And then this year already, their first and fourth round pick on injury reserve. They got a couple of other guys on injury reserve. They're battling it. Like you said, Tyler Eifert is on the PUP list right now. He still is not able to. He's on rehab field working out. He's not able to practice with the team. They've been nicked up at cornerback during training camp. They've been nicked up at tackle. With you can sustain one injury, but when you start to get 2 and more injuries at a position group, it becomes very difficult to operate efficiently. And so they're hoping that a lot of those hands are going to be on deck for the New York Jets game, but Tyler Croft, who they're hoping to play against the Jets and start at tight end, hasn't taken a snap in a preseason game. That's and the same thing for Darqueze Dennard. If Darqueze plays in the first preseason game or regular season game in the slot corner position, he didn't take a snap in a preseason game. So it's been just the opposite in terms of injury. And then you talk about suspension. losing Vontez Burfict. New York Jets were in the same boat. Sheldon Richardson, their fine defensive lineman, suspended for the opener. Yeah, so, suspensions are a factor all across the National Football League for sure.
Well, and certainly week one, it feels like every team has one or two or five. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And the obvious with the Bengals, and this goes on throughout the league, when you have the kind of sustained success that the Bengals have had and you don't win a Super Bowl, you still get picked through the same way Super Bowl winning teams do because you have good football players. Everyone knows a couple of those wide receivers aren't there anymore, and those are pretty big shoes to fill in Jones and Sanu.
Yeah, they really are. And the six wide receivers that made the final roster, the 53-man roster, 3 of the 6 are rookies, and one of them is undrafted. An undrafted free agent named Alex Erickson out of Wisconsin, who really captured the position. He caught 2 touchdown passes in the preseason. He returned a punt for 80 yards for a touchdown, and he returned 5 punts altogether, averaging over 30 yards a return. I don't think he had a punt return under 15 yards. It was crazy. And so he won the job. Brandon Tate was let go, and Alex Erickson will be on the 45-man roster as a punt returner, special teams, slot receiver type guy. And, so they're very young at the wide receiver position. They do like Tyler Boyd, who they get in the second round out of Pittsburgh, very smooth, very efficient route runner. He's been the best player on his football team at every level of football he's played at high school and collegiate level. So, they don't think the game's too big for him, and he's showing signs that he is as advertised, in that regard. And so they're going to be awfully young at that position for sure. And then when you compound it with Tyler Eifert being out, because, A.J. Green's the number 1 target, Tyler Eifert's number 2. I mean, he's listed as a tight end, but he's just a big-bodied wideout. The guy runs routes like a wide receiver, so put him in formation like a wide receiver. And with him not there and the youth at the wide receiver position, everybody's going to have to do a little so nobody does them off.
You talk about continuity there, Dave. I mean, I look at this defense, and it feels like you played with some of these guys. It feels like they've been there so long. I mean, maybe it's because we see the Bengals twice a year, and then we see them play in the postseason a little bit, and I'm always keeping an eye on them. But it feels like Dunlap, Pecco, Atkins, Johnson, Dansby's new in, but we've been seeing him in Cleveland now, Maluga, Kirkpatrick, Jones. I mean, and Burfict not even a part of this. It really feels like the defense, it should be very second nature what Marvin's tried to do there and what the defense has tried to do there, that lining up when you have that kind of continuity, that's a benefit that, quite frankly, the Ravens or nobody else has at this point.
Yeah, I think that that defensive excellence and continuity is going to be something that's going to have to carry them in the early stages of the season until the offense, gets back into some sort of a rhythm and consistency with respect to the new players that are going to be added to the mix there. But like you say, the defensive component, losing Reggie Nelson, 8 interceptions, tied for the league lead last year. Ben Roethlisberger's glad to see him go. Ben Roethlisberger had thrown 24 interceptions against the Bengals, and Reggie had 6 of them. So, he's glad he's gone. But it is the defense last year, second in the National Football League in points allowed. They were 5th in red zone touchdown percentage. I mean, they sometimes will give up yards, the old bend but don't break. They're very, very salty in terms of letting people in the end zone. And it's the only defense in the National Football League that over the last 2 years can claim the fact that they've got more interceptions than touchdown passes allowed. And over the last 2 years, they're +5. They've got 5 more interceptions than touchdown passes allowed over a 2-year time frame. Nobody else in the NFL is even in the positive side of it. So that's what this football team's been about.
Dave Lapham from the Cincinnati Bengals play-by-play team, longtime color analyst for 31 years, as well as played back in the 70s and 80s with the Andersons and Booby Clark. You played with all the good ones back in the day, I remember, and Trumpy as well. And, for the scheduling of the new era, boy, it feels like we end every single year in Cincinnati, right? I mean, there's been I've watched the New Year's fireworks in Cincinnati, feels like every year for a decade, right? And there's good and bad in that, but I've grown to sort of expect it and respect it for what it is, that you got to be playing your best football in December in this league and certainly in this division where Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Baltimore are all going to see each other at some point in December and early January.
Yeah, you're right, and that's what happened to the Bengals last year. Started out 8-0 and go 4-4 down the stretch. One of the biggest reasons why is they lost one of their most important guys in quarterback, Andy Dalton. In that Pittsburgh Steelers game, and Andy was having arguably an NFL MVP type season at the quarterback position. He ended up leading the AFC in passer rating. He was having a very, very good year, obviously, and breaks his thumb against the Pittsburgh Steelers before the playoff game with a couple of games left in the regular season, 4 games left in the regular season. So that was obviously the unfortunate blow there. But you're right. You gotta be healthy. Look like when, as you know better than anybody, when Baltimore started getting players back at the end of their Super Bowl season, started accumulating players at the right time and getting on a roll with all these veteran players and everybody healthy and Flacco just putting all his chips on the table and throwing 11 touchdown passes, no interceptions, through the playoffs. I mean, everything came together at the right time in terms of player availability and excellence of play, and you hoisted a Super Bowl trophy. That's big time.
For you guys with the Jets this week, and obviously the Steelers playing the Redskins, and I don't root for the Redskins often, but I'm going to make an exception on Monday night, Dave.
I hear you.
I get the feeling the Ravens are playing the Bills. I feel like the Ravens should beat the Bills. The Ravens are going to lose to the Bills at home. It's going to be a long year around here. Yet I look at the Bengals going to the Jets, and I say, the Jets are an interesting football team, and the Jets could give them a fit this week on the road, and then you've got to go to Pittsburgh next week. This is... I don't know how much tougher you would want to start your season than having to go to play the Jets and the Steelers on the road.
And then your home openers against the world champion Denver Broncos. That's the first 3 games. All 3 teams at least 10 wins. A 10-win team, a 10-win team, and a 12-win team, and defending Super Bowl champions. So you're right. It's a tough start to the season for sure. And compound the Jets game with the fact that on Sunday, September 11th, is the 15th anniversary of 9/11, and the Twin Towers crumbling in front of everybody's eyes in New York. And you better believe that it's going to be that stadium is going to be out of its mind. So, not just your typical road crowd. It's a road crowd that's frenzied with NFL opening emotion that goes with it, plus everything that they're going to do. It'll be a spectacle, I'm sure. It'll be very emotional. It'll be a spectacle. And that's another factor, another intangible that you have to deal with. And Marvin has been addressing that with the team that, hey, the Bengals were the team that was chosen to go to New York to play against the Jets. The only game in New York on the 15th anniversary of 9/11. Be ready for what's going to be taking place there. And so, that's another variable you have to put in the equation.
Well, there's certainly comfort there with Dalton, right? And even winning the football game with McCarron in January before the incidents happened at the end of that game. Dalton coming back another year of success under his belt. Having had that sort of weird, unfortunate injury at the wrong time of the year. Some thoughts about him and sort of the calmness of having a quarterback in that franchise.
Yeah, they're very happy with Andy Dalton. They feel like, they went and handpicked him. He was handpicked by Jay Gruden and the Bengals organization to be their starting quarterback. It was with the Carson Palmer debacle. And, here's a kid that came in as a rookie and had to play. There was no choice. He didn't know what he didn't know. And they still cobbled together 9 wins and made the playoffs. So, and then it's been better than that ever since, and he continues to grow and develop. And he makes unbelievable audibles. The touchdown pass he threw to A.J. Green last year in Baltimore that took place right after the Ravens had scored was an audible that when he sees the right looks, Hugh Jackson gave him the liberty, I'm sure Ken Zampese will as well, to check to a play not only in the game plan but in the entire playbook. And if everybody else on the field can't stay up to speed with him, it's on them. It's not on Andy Dalton. And he made some unbelievable audibles last year. And so he understands his offense intimately and thoroughly, and he could install it as well as any coach, any coordinator could. And he understands what defenses are trying to do to take it away. So he's got great football IQ. They really like him as a field general and getting the team in the right play at all times.
All right, Dave, there's no wrong answer here. You will not be judged on this, and it will not be held against you. But, as a Bengal supporter, fan, near the team, who do you fear more, Baltimore or Pittsburgh this year?
Well, I'll tell you that I think what's gone on the last couple of times against the Steelers, particularly this playoff game, I mean,
there's
you know
something
what?
there now, right? I mean, there's some ugly in that thing now, right?
It is. It is. You know, I mean, to me, and we hated the Pittsburgh Steelers when I played. They had something that we didn't. They had all those Super Bowl rings. But you know what? There was always respect. Some of the stuff that goes on now, it's gone beyond a respect level. It's like, man, after we played, the Pittsburgh Steelers, we could have gone to a bar somewhere, had a beer, and talked over, some of the things that took place during the game. These guys, I don't think they can do that. So to me, I mean, that's why Sunday Night Football in December, they want this matchup with the Steelers and the Bengals again at Paul Brown Stadium. I mean, they're thinking that's going to be a Donnybrook slugfest, and so I think right now, I don't know about fear, but hate. Man, I'll tell you what, there's some bad blood between these two franchises, real bad.
Well, we'll get a little taste of that in week 2 after the Steelers take on the Redskins. Hey, in my dream world, I wake up Monday morning. I don't care what happens to Cleveland and Philadelphia. I mean, Philadelphia doesn't have a quarterback at this point. Cleveland might actually win this week, which is good for them. One of the 3 or 4 they might win. I just hope it's not against us. But we'll be watching you guys and watching Pittsburgh, because certainly every Raven fan feels like, yeah, maybe this is an 8 or 9 win team, but maybe it's a 10 or 11 win team. But I don't think anybody believes this is a 5 or 6 win team here. I think people feel like the Ravens are going to get back up and pick themselves back up and dust themselves off after last year and be pretty formidable in the division this year.
I'll tell you, I think we talked about it last year. I get nothing but respect for the Ravens. I didn't think the Ravens were a 5-win team last year. I thought the Ravens, were in a bunch of close football games. They were, just crushed by injury. They had all kinds of scenarios that they were working through, all kinds of adversity. And I have all the respect in the world for Ozzie Newsome, for Harbaugh. I mean, those guys, they know what they're doing and they do it well. And they always put a football team out in the field that you can appreciate and respect. So I get nothing but respect for those guys for sure.
Dave Lapp, remember, you don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati, right? So, Hey, man, save me some chili and maybe some ribs at Montgomery. And, hey, I'll be celebrating New Year's Eve with you guys one more time, I mean, I know a whole lot more about what Cincinnati looks like on New Year's Eve than I do Baltimore, that's for sure.
That's crazy, my man.
We'll see you soon, man. I'll bring WNST to Cincinnati. See you later, Dave.
I look forward to it. Nestor.
You got it, Dave Lapham, the longtime voice of the Cincinnati Bengals, as well as a hell of no lineman back in the 70s and early 80s, and one of our favorite people to have on the program. He's not on Twitter or Facebook. He's old school, but you can hear him on the call with the Bengals action. We love having him on and talking with him as well. Also host a television show with Marvin Lewis out in Cincinnati as well. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, our Facebook Live, always on whenever we're doing live television and radio, as well as out on YouTube on our WNSTV channel. Anything you miss, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. We do come in live in Cleveland, Cincinnati, Germany, anywhere you are, we're out there. We also deliver that morning newspaper to you each and every morning at 7 a.m. to your email inbox. It's digital, it's free, it's easy, it's one click. You sign up. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And if you want to remain Baltimore's smartest fan and the person who knows first, you get on the WNST text service. It's where we deliver breaking news to you spam-free, and we've done that for a decade now very successfully. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and, of course, Dennis Colossus drives you home on Thursdays from 3 until 5. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports. As they head out to Detroit to take on the Tigers, and of course battling for a wild card, a division lead. Certainly going to see the Red Sox next week. Plenty of baseball left, but it's football season around here.